Welcome to the Recovery Stories podcast, bringing you stories of hope, healing, and triumph over the bondage of addictions, mental health struggles, trauma, and dysfunctional family systems. Our courageous storytellers have chosen to live their journey out loud in order to show others that they don't have to suffer in silence. The stories you will hear are raw, real, and may involve graphic and triggering content. This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's Rooted alumni community. If you or a loved one are struggling, have questions, or are ready to take the next step, call our admission center at 888-648-4098. Or visit us online at www.promisesbehavioralhealth.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer, and I'm so glad that each and every one of you have joined us, whether you are watching or listening live or on replay. We're glad you're here. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. From starring in Baywatch and multiple reality shows to the fashion world of endorsement and show hosting, making his own music and touring the country, and now most importantly, being an advocate and person in long-term recovery. Our guest today has just about done it all, and we're so excited to have him on the show to share his life's journey. Jeremy Jackson, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Patrick, thanks so much. It's a pleasure. I respect what you do, and I'm just glad to be on the show today, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, so for everyone, life is so full of ups and downs, but for many of us, those struggles come in the form of mental health issues, trauma, and addictions, which bring about unimaginable heartbreak and consequences and force us into the miracle of desperation. So, that's one of my so parts of what we do on the show is getting to talk about those things and kind of break stigma and elevate that voice. So let's dive right in and talk about it and what got you there. So first, one of my, I think, most important questions that I like to ask is, why have you chosen to be open and live your recovery story out loud?
Well, gosh, for all the mistakes I've made, all the blindness I've been a victim to, all the successes that I've taken for granted, all the opportunities I've passed up on, stepped on, all the family members that I've hurt, all the relationships that I've just, poo-pooed on. It's like there is absolutely no other way than to turn any of those negatives into a positive than to hopefully help other people not have to make the same mistake, not have to go same lengths and depths of desperation. That's about it.
That's awesome. I couldn't think of a better answer.
All the heartache.
Yeah. All right. So, let's begin where most stories all begin. Where were you born?
I was born in Anaheim, California. A little city in Orange County.
Okay, cool. So what was your family life like and the dynamics that you were born into?
Well, I had a single mom. My mother and father were high school sweethearts, and my mom grew up in a very strict, oppressive, religious household. Extremely strict. And my mother fell in love with my dad in high school, and he was the bad boy and the rock and roller, and he had a drug problem, and she really didn't know much about that life. She had a very small, kind of narrow perspective upbringing. So, when she found out about his drug addiction, she kind of just took me and kind of had to raise me all on her own. So, single mom we were on, food stamps, housing, with people coming to the house to make sure we were still broke, and and going in line for free cheese and rice at the church and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of just me and my mom against the world from a very early age.
Wow. So, wow. From scholastic achievement, social performance, making friends, to playing the part expected of us from our families, which is not always so healthy. Being a kid is just hard, period. Right. So much is asked of us to learn and adjust to within certain societal expectations. So I can't imagine, with what you just shared, how that just exacerbated your childhood experience. Are there any areas that, as far as school or being able to make friends and maintain relationships, that were specifically difficult for you?
Oh man. Nobody really has it easy. Everybody has their obstacles and strengths and weaknesses, but, to add to, being fatherless and, really all I ever wanted was a dad, and waiting for him to come home and not knowing anything about him and all that kind of stuff. I was diagnosed GLD, gifted learning disabled. So I had ADHD. I was very hyper. I was dyslexic. So I wrote everything completely backwards. You'd have to hold what I wrote in a mirror to read it. Wow. Inside of the book to outside of the book. And socially, as far as, like hygiene, an outfit together, interacting with adults. My vocabulary was very high, but I was really held back in other areas. Math, words moved around on paper for me. It was really hard for me to read. I was hyper. So all I ever wanted to do from an early age was perform. I loved dancing. I loved singing. I loved creating art. So, most of the time I was locked up in the room, and I had a little tape recorder, and I would make little shows and radio shows and interview myself as somebody else. And I pause, and then it was a karaoke machine. So I'd play a song and record on the other one. And and I do these whole radio shows with music.
That's awesome.
So that kind of stuff stimulated me. I loved that. But school really didn't. I think I had the record for going to the principal's office. I had teachers that would drive me home because my mom wouldn't answer the phone when they wanted to get rid of me. I was pretty tortured and tormented. Didn't get along with. I wasn't good at sports. I would run the wrong way with the ball and score in the wrong goal. It was a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, like pain that would come out as anger, because I really didn't feel like I fit in really anywhere.
Yeah. Wow. So do you still have any of those tapes that you made your radio shows?
It's funny. My mom just moved to Florida after living her whole life in Orange County, and we had to go through all her stuff and get it out and pare it down. And we put some tapes in a big bin, but nobody had a tape player to listen to them. So there might be somewhere laying.
Nice. Well, leads up to my next question. That's a pretty fun memory from childhood, I'd say. So what are some of the happiest memories that come to mind when you reflect on your childhood?
Happiest memories. Surfing was a big deal for me. Me and my mom, we moved to Newport Beach when I was about 6 years old. And, riding my skateboard, going down to the beach, swimming. Remember those ice tickles, those really big, like Otter Pops? They were like this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting those things, just that kind of stuff. Me and my mom were really, really close. So just times with mom at the beach, and moving to beautiful Newport Beach when I was about 6.
That's awesome. I haven't thought about those ice pops probably since I was a kid. That's funny.
That's what it made your throat all scratchy.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's the truth. So did you say, were you the only child?
I have one sister. She's 4 years younger than me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or six,
She what?
6 years younger than me.
Okay. So, my next question, you've already kind of answered, as far as your father was concerned, but, were there other family members or friends who struggle with mental health or substance use disorders that you were exposed to, in your early years that really impacted you?
Well, my family's interesting. Yes, my dad, I found out when I was 26 that my dad, who I had never met or really hung out with or got to know, died of a drug overdose that potentially was a murder. There's this whole conspiracy involved with.
Wow.
Go into that. That's a whole nother story. But my dad's dad, who I never knew, actually decapitated himself in a fit of road rage. He drove his car underneath a big rig truck and decapitated himself. So there's that. Historically, there's, rage, addiction. My mom has pretty severe social generalized anxiety. My grandma and grandpa on my mom's side, I'm close with my grandma. My grandpa I never really met, but there's got to be something that plays into that. The religiosity of being so critical and firm and regimented with religion that is mentally unhealthy. There's a line between spirituality and love and like this gnarly judgmental
rigidity. Yeah.
No skirts below the knee. That's, if you ask me, that's not mentally healthy.
Yep.
There's a lot of that stuff, a lot of dysfunction in my upbringing and my life. Yeah.
I like to ask that question because, we have our audience is full of people from all different walks of life that are either struggling, with different things, or they've got loved ones that are struggling. And I think it's so important that we, continue to talk about how, family systems are real and alive. Like it's never the one person in isolation that's struggling.
Yeah. My sister's been 51-50'd. My sister's boyfriend was raised in Pennsylvania in a cult where he wasn't allowed to wear glasses because that was if he couldn't see straight, it was because he had to earn some kind of favor with God,
Wow.
and had killings with no Novocaine, no doctors allowed, siblings dying, but his brothers and sisters having babies, multiple babies that die, like really gnarly stuff. So yeah, we're kind of a whole clan of who are we stay sane and we help each other together, but everybody has a pretty bumpy road in their rearview mirror, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that I love so much about, again, interviewing people, talking about each other's stories and what have you. It's perpetuated so much in our culture, this image of perfection. But, in reality, true connection among humans really happens through our blemishes, through our errors, through the uniqueness of the colors of our life. And so, just all the things you just said make me that much more interested in your life right now, and so I think it's awesome, especially when we talk about, how it leads, some of these things are really hard and difficult to talk about and live. But, on the other side, there's not always, but so much of the time there's, hope and, a life well lived,
One thing I've learned, there is always a solution.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way out. And, it can feel like it's impossible. You know, it can feel like there's no way. It feels like nobody else understands, nobody else would get it. And you know, if we feel that way, it's just because we haven't found the way out yet.
Yeah.
You know, haven't had that connection yet. And we'll probably get into this later, but how I've found, you know, a way through letting go of self-will.
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely dive into that. So I do want to know, though, when you were a kid, do you remember, was there a time where you realized or had this conscious decision, I'm different from the other kids? And I know you already talked about your differences and that was the case, but when was the point that switch flipped and you started to conceptualize that?
You know, it's a really good question. It's very interesting. I think much of my life, even to date, I'm actually trying to get back to how I used to operate. You know, from a young age, very innately, very, you know, instinctually, you know, empathically, energetically, you know, I just knew.
Mm.
And I remember being crippled with pain, weeping, just knowing that life was not going to be easy, that something was different and or wrong with me. From a very early age, I can remember looking at people on the exterior and knowing that on my interior,
mm-hmm.
that's something was not working, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't feel on the inside how it seemed to me that people operated on the outside. Where do they find this motivation? Where do they find this sense of, you know, desire to run around and do this and do that and operate? I just want to cry in bed, you know? So from a very early age, I definitely, I knew that, you know?
Yeah. So
I'm not I don't give up easy. You know, I'm stubborn. I'm committed. It's not like I just threw in the towel. It's like this overwhelming sense of impending doom, yet this desire to try and continue to try and try this and try that and be nicer or be meaner or make money or get famous or do drugs or like I'm gonna figure it out one day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So when you kind of shared about how you had this creativity streak as a kid and really enjoyed it. What was it? Do you remember the time where you felt the sense of knowing what you wanted to do when you grew up, or did you just know that you wanted to be creative in some way?
Well, it was watching. Funny enough. Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, and Knight Rider. It's like I saw these men, you know, these men who could do extraordinary things, mm-hmm. who had extraordinary character, who had a power, it seemed, that normal men didn't have. They were the pinnacle of success and of influence and of having it made, you know, blessed, gifted.
Yeah.
And I knew I could do that. I was like, I can do that. I just knew I could do that. I envisioned that. I saw that happening. I practiced, rehearsed. I mean, I spent hours, you know, hours and hours honing my craft, not knowing it was a business, not knowing that there was managers or agents or auditions. I didn't know how it worked. I just knew that I wanted to possess that thing. And I started in like a little CEO, like a little boss, you know. I'm at a year old, A year old, I was already rehearsing my spin moves, 2, 3, 4, just full-time job.
Wow. Okay. So when did acting enter the picture for you, and how'd that come to be?
At 6 years old. So single mom, I'm in daycare, having a hard time in school. I'm advanced in other areas and slow in other areas and not really fitting in. So my mom's going to community college in Orange County, no connection to the entertainment industry, no family members who had been successful. I mean, we're not even in Hollywood, this is not like a thing everybody does in our town. She saw on a bulletin board at school, child actors wanted. And I was always a ham getting up on tables. I was getting her friends together. I'd be a ballerina 1 minute and do a whole performance to Mozart. And then I'd do Michael Jackson and please watch me, please, introduce me. It's real specific. I'd be like, Mom, okay, you have to say introducing Jeremy Jackson. Like this, and I get all mad if she didn't do it right.
Man, I did it wrong at the beginning of the show. I need to start. We got to start over. I got to do it differently.
Yeah, totally obsessed. So she was like, okay, and she just sent. I remember her taking the pictures. She just took some pictures in our little apartment and mailed them off to this agent. Went up and met with this agent. I was real charismatic, boisterous. I had no clue I was a child. I thought I was a grown up. I was ready to throw me in the Shark Tank. I'm ready to roll. And it was obvious to the agent. And that agent was actually, we didn't know about her or anything. It was just a shot in the dark. And she was the agent for the Olsen twins. She was the agent for a bunch of kids on Saved by the Bell. She represented all the big child actors at that time.
Very
cool.
It
was just off to the races,
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was the point where you quote unquote made it? Would you say that was when you landed Baywatch, or did you do something before that?
I did over 60 commercials before Baywatch. 6 and 10, I had done 60 commercials. And, so from very early, here I am 6 years old. We just started acting. My first gig was Mattel Color Racers, the cars that change color in water. So on summer break, in between every cartoon is me, the kid in Orange County that you go to school with. So as soon as I went back for 3rd grade, it's like, what, and then I'm getting beat up. I'm getting made fun of. I'm getting, the
so
girls
it wasn't positive attention you got from that.
No. They ostracized me even more, isolated me even more. Wow. Because I can't read, and I'm already. So now I'm it's just, when we sacrifice the Virgin, anybody that's at the top, you put Jesus on the cross. Anybody, the higher, the further you have to fall. So especially, you talked about that. Kids are gnarly, man.
Yes. Yeah. It's a great point. So, leading me to my next question, how did you handle, and this is kind of more towards, like when you got Baywatch, what was that like? What happened? What led to it? And kind of a follow-up to that is, how did you handle work, school, life balance at that point? Because I'm sure it went from doing commercials, which is, like one gig, you're done, and to you've got a regular job you're working, right?
Right. Well, I auditioned for Baywatch when I was 9 years old. By the time we started filming, I was 10. I'll never forget the day. There was like 4 auditions. I got to meet Knight Rider, one of my idols. It was super cool. We didn't know it was a international hit TV show. It was just another job. Maybe it's going to go good. Maybe it's going to go bad. And most entertainment industry productions are, really hurry up and wait, really feast or famine, high stress, shoestring budget, just make it work. So, the first season was just kind of putting time in, and, shot in the dark, throw the layup up, see what happens. But it was fun. I mean, it was on the beach. It was what I love to do. It was surfboards and, cool. I got to pick my clothes and, basically be me, which was a single kid from the beach. So it was very fun for me. And, it was during the summertime. So it was all summer. There was no school. But, obviously I had school teachers, school tutors and stuff. And I had always had a really hard time with school. So I spent most of my time getting out of having to do any work. And I learned to leverage my power from a very early age because I was needed, and the paycheck was fine. And, so I learned to throw fits and get out of doing schoolwork. But luckily I had cool tutors and interesting life more experiential education, because the scholastic thing I hated, I dreaded. I mean, I still dread it. And anything that feels like homework, I hate.
I can relate to that. I was homeschooled my whole life. And sometimes I wish I had gotten the opportunity to go to school, but I feel like it was what I needed because the type of learner I was. So I can relate to what you're talking about on that end of things.
Well, all the answers are in the back of the book.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's true. So looking back, do you remember, did your perspective of reality shift from that of your peers at the same age as you? And if so, when was that?
There's definitely a shift. Definitely a shift. However, it's not the shift I think most people would assume. It is, however, the shift most people treated me like. But, I am a people pleaser. I'm this fatherless child who just wants approval, who just wants friends, who just wants to be loved, who will give you the last dollar in my pocket, give you the shirt off my back. So if anything, the shift happened by me trying harder, working harder, giving deeper in order to be accepted as just the boys, just, another kid on the baseball field, craving connection and authenticity. However, most people assumed, that I had an ego, or that I acted the way I acted, or said what I was saying due to my, self-supported, superiority complex, but it was just genuinely who I was. You know what I mean? So it was a very disruptive dynamic of trying,
It's really interesting because, we look at so many, and I'm sure you've had this conversation with so many people that, because you look at the psyche of people who find fame at a young age, and typically that is what we see, and so, that may have been one of the things that kept you from, clearly you had some stumbling blocks that came on later, but I can tell now that you are such a kind and gentle person. Like, one of the things that protected you from, further screwing up your life, who knows, that your difficulties, kept your ego in check, at least for a period of time. I don't know. But
I figured out later in life that I have the dyslexia it doesn't stop at writing backwards. I have dyslexic ego. It's still self-centeredness. It's still, my low opinion of myself, or my higher opinion of others, or my, the people pleasing, and the, feeling less than, or the needing of love, and it's still self-centeredness. Just not the, screw you, pay me, I'm better than you ego.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
makes sense. So, talking about character defects, let's talk about some of the how we kind of those manifest outwardly. When did substance use enter the picture?
Well, very early. So I started when I was still in diapers. I started sticking foreign objects, bobby pins, tweezers, butter knives in electrical outlets. And I tell people that, my drinking and my using was not much different. There was something I was told not to do that was dangerous, to be cautious of. I didn't believe my mom. I thought she was keeping something from me, some item of fun, some fact of, enjoyment. And I got shocked. It hurt. I caused physical damage, financial, and I really upset people, But I thought maybe if I did it a different way, or if I did it on the top and not the bottom, or if I did it in one side and not the other, or if I used this or that I could get away with it. And every time it hurt me, it hurt other people,
Wow. Yeah.
And one day I stuck something in the dryer outlet and I blew myself across the room. And that was my bottom with electrical outlets.
Wow.
Almost killed myself.
Dang.
So from a very early age, anything that I was told was naughty or wrong or to be cautious of, I saw a big kid smoking cigarettes. So first it was cigarettes. Well, I also used to mix household chemicals together, bleach, peroxide, rubbing alcohol, pine sol, anything I could get that I was told no, like, hey, no, naughty, whatever. There's a lock on it or something. I get a slap for going in there. I'm like, these adults are keeping something from me because they don't want me to enjoy life. They want me to stay miserable like I am right now. This must be some entryway into this other dimension of happiness that I am not experiencing currently. Let me do that. And so I'm pretty sure I discovered huffing like accidentally.
Oh, wow.
I would lock myself in the bathroom. I'd put a towel under the door and I'd make about 20 different formulas, from emptying shampoo bottles to emptying, and doing I'd melt plastic and I would get my butt whooped, I'd get in trouble. I have this single mom. We're broke, and right. I'm burning financial, security stuff, stuff that keeps the house afloat, stuff that we need. So I get in trouble, I hurt. Same thing with the dryer outlet, so I get hurt. I hurt my family life. I hurt my feelings and potentially endangering my physical health, and then it was like cigarettes. I was stealing cigarettes. I dipped cigarettes in nail polish remover because that's another thing I was told not to do, to be careful of. I'd wait for them to dry and I'd smoke them to see if anything happened. Nobody ever taught me how to do drugs. Nobody ever told me these things would get me high, but I knew there had to be something outside of me I could do to change my experience, my interior experience. Mm-hmm. And eventually you find older kids and smoke some weed or whatever. I think I found weed when I was 10 or 12. There's so many things that come with that, then you have a secret with a friend, something special. That you can feel a part of, at least with somebody, that you have a secret, something you're doing nobody else can know about. There's the excitement of stealing it out of the lady's ashtray in her car that smokes it, and your apartment complex. It's like, ooh, right? And then of course you get the head change from smoking the weed. So that's where it started when I was about 12. But I was searching high and low far before that.
Interesting. So was your initial substance use at all connected to Hollywood acting, like that those people? No,
definitely not. Cause like I said, when I was probably 3 years old, I was mixing those household chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah. So at 12, when you started to smoke weed, what was that like? What was was that with your Hollywood crowd, your coworkers, your whatever?
No. I mean, I sure wish I could blame it on Hollywood. I sure wish I could blame it on some bad influence, but it was me, all me.
Wow.
If anything, when I would show up to work at 12, that's where I would pretend to be a good boy or a grown up and a professional. But as soon as people weren't paying attention or had assumed there was nothing to worry about with me, that's when I'm going to do it. The check's in the mail, the job's done.
Right.
All right, let's go drink, on the beach with friends, usually older friends. I gravitated towards older people, and it was cool to have the kid from Baywatch around. And wow, look how messed up he gets, look how drunk he gets.
Yeah. So when did it go from fun for you to and like a casual experience to actually not being fun anymore and having consequences?
Man, I don't think I ever got away with controlling and enjoying my drinking. I mean, or using that. I used to steal the weed out of this lady's ashtray. I think about a week in, I got arrested by the police because we snuck into this schoolyard snack shack to steal Snickers, and then we got arrested for trespassing. It was humiliating. I pooped my pants. The cops put their knee in my back. I was 12, and I crapped my hog-tied and carried, made fun of. So, the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization was out the gate. Then, right away, I would always, want to drink more than anybody, show off. I ruined friends' birthday parties, trashed people's houses in blackouts, probably at 14. So I never was the guy that pulled it
Moderation
off.
was never, you never even started off with any moderation.
Nope. And I think around 16, just like 14, 15, 16, I'm doing keggers and we're smoking weed, and it's no big deal, even though I'm doing it, earlier and harder than anybody. But I think about 16, somebody talked me into taking ecstasy, or, how we are. I didn't hear really what it was, or I heard what I wanted to hear, because I was always scared to do like hardcore drugs because I thought they'd kill me. Because my mom told me I'd probably die, which she wasn't wrong. But regardless, I took ecstasy, and then somebody told me, dude, do you know what's in ecstasy? There's like cocaine in ecstasy. There's like crystal meth in ecstasy. There's, MDMA. And I was like, I can remember thinking, oh, it didn't kill me. That means I can do it and not die. Yeah. So I ended up, pretty heavy into cocaine around 16. From 16 to 18 was a lot of cocaine use. Baywatch was kind of at its height. I was old enough to go to clubs, buy my way into clubs. I could get, I'd go to 18 and over clubs or look older and still hang out with 21-year-old girls at 16. I could pull this off. And I feel like even back then, I'm 41 now. So back then it wasn't like, it was kind of like the healthy person's drug. It was like, to the Playboy Mansion and you did some coke. It wasn't
right. Well, also it hadn't been that long since, I mean, what decade was it that they, I guess it was a few decades before that they were putting cocaine in Coca-Cola, but
it was the rich man's drug. It was the distinguished gentleman's party favor. It was a party favor back then,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, how did those consequences, evolve over time from, it sounds like you had your garden variety stuff that would happen kind of regularly. That was, normal for you, but like, as it does, right. They escalated. And what did that look like?
You know, I would work all summer, and then when filming was over, I would steal my checks and I would party all winter. And about a month or two before summer, I'd be real sucked up. I will have had picked my face really bad, potentially dyed my hair purple, lost a bunch of weight. You know, I looked like crap. I was pale. So I would go to rehab starting pretty early, 14, 15. I'd go to rehab. I'd straighten out and put a little weight back on, come back home, go to my nice barber, get some cool hair, cool clothes again, and go to work again. And so I did that for about 4 years. I had already been to 5 rehabs probably by the age of 18 or so. So that was a pretty sick cycle,
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in today to part 1 of Jeremy Jackson's story. We're so glad that each and every one of you have connected with us. And we hope that you will join us again next week for part 2. Just want to remind you, as always, that you are only one decision away from a completely different life. And it is never too late to start loving yourself.
For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes. Recovery Stories is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's rooted alumni community. If you or a loved one are struggling, have questions, or ready to take the next step, call our admission center at 888-648-4098. Or visit us online at www.promisesbehavioralhealth.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please share with your friends. Follow, subscribe, and leave us a review. We are grateful for you and hope that you have been encouraged by today's episode. As always, remember you are only one decision away from a completely different life, and it is never too late to start loving yourself.